What if I told you that one of the biggest and most important debates in the Five Nights at Freddy's Fears community could end today? That if I end up being right, the FNAF community can finally agree on something? Well, Fearists, today I'll attempt to do just that, and unveil the true identity of FNAF's vengeful spirit, and debunk a theory many fans have been backing for a while now. So strap in and remember to subscribe, because today's video is going to be pretty insane. The identity of the vengeful spirit, also known as the one you should not have killed in the Five Nights at Freddy's franchise, has been a fiercely debated subject in the FNAF Fears community for a pretty long time now, with the two main candidates for the role of the spirit being two children named Cassidy and Andrew. I'll be breaking down why the latter option most likely isn't the vengeful spirit, using evidence from all across the franchise, and making a Twitter account that you should totally check out, wink wink nudge nudge. And before we start, remember, it's just a theory and you're allowed to disagree with me. But yapping aside, let's get right into it. To start off, I need to explain what the vengeful spirit actually is and why it's important to FNAF's story, because it matters a lot and is essentially one of the main driving forces of everything we see unfold in the latter half of the franchise's lore. The character of the vengeful spirit was first introduced in Ultimate Custom Night, where it became clear that someone was keeping the player, almost definitely William Afton, in an eternal hellish purgatory where he is hunted down by Fazbear animatronics for the rest of time. You can occasionally catch glimpses of this kid's face after dying and hear their voice in certain voice lines, particularly ones from the mediocre melodies. Certain characters will also mention someone called the one you should not have killed, implying that whoever is out for us was one of William Afton's victims. But which one? This is where the debate gets pretty heated. At the time of Ultimate Custom Night's release, most fans assumed that this mysterious spirit was Cassidy, the fifth victim of the missing children incident, William's first mass murder. This was hinted at by a cutscene of a twitching Golden Freddy, the fifth original animatronic, appearing after 50/20 mode is completed, as well as some other hints such as the mysterious nature of Golden Freddy, the fifth spirit being the one to cause William's springlock failure in FNAF 3 and likely keeping him alive after it, and more recently the role of the Golden Freddy kid in the FNAF movie, who's happy to see William die at the end of the film. However, as time went by, things became way less clear, with the introduction of the Fazbear Fright storyline and one of its main players, Andrew. Basically, Andrew fulfills a similar role to Cassidy's. He's really mad at William for killing him and refuses to let him die, appearing as a ghostly little boy in an alligator mask and prolonging Afton's life while he's in the hospital, keeping him trapped in an endless nightmare in the story The Man in Room 1280, and later ending up in the battery pack of an animatronic called Fetch. And it was this one story that convinced lots of FNAF fans that Andrew was the vengeful spirit. After all, why choose a character who we don't really know that much about over someone who's literally shown to us through the books? Obviously, this theory basically requires the books to be canon to the games in order to function. However, there's a big problem with the Andrew is the one you should not have killed theory, or the vengeful Andrew theory as I'll be referring to it from now on. There's no proof that William was involved in any murders outside of the missing children incident, the dead children incident, and the death of Charlotte Emily, which means Andrew is essentially an odd one out. The only group of deaths outside those that William could be responsible for is the kids he killed using the Funtime animatronics, which is a bit weird and leaves Andrew's place in the storyline unclear. A major piece of evidence used to support the idea that Andrew is the vengeful spirit is the nightmare he's putting William through. Several animatronics in the game have lines referring to this endless cycle as a nightmare. This is a nightmare that you won't wake from is a line spoken by Nightmarion, for example. As well as that, the spirit is treated with male pronouns in certain voice lines, going against the name Cassidy. Out of every single FNAF game, I've only ever seen one that contains a minor hint that maybe even slightly hints at the fact he's in the game's canon. This kid in FNAF 3 wearing an alligator mask, just like Andrew does in the books. That's it. I've talked about my thoughts on the FNAF books' canonicity to the game several times before on the channel, but to quickly summarize them, I'm generally okay with them being games canon as long as it's done in a way that makes sense and there's actual proof for them being canon. The latter is what's missing in this equation. There's no conclusive proof that they're canon, which is a fact tons of people overlook. For that reason, I keep the books as parallels to the games in my mind, at least for now. So if you can't definitively prove that the books are in the games, can you prove that Andrew is in the games as a separate character? Not really. Or can you? Even though I've brought this up in my Into the Pit video, I still want to reiterate that there are 6 kids present in the scene where we see Pit Bonnie kill the MCI kids. If you want to see my full thoughts on that and why I think there are only 5 MCI victims, I suggest you go watch that video after this one. As well as that, there's the Toy Chica, the high school years intermissions in Ultimate Custom Night. That are likely a twisted explanation of how William Afton kidnapped and killed every MCI victim. Yet again, there are 6 dead victims here. Thanks to this, a lot of people presume there were actually 6 children killed in the MCI, which to me makes no sense. The 6th kid in Into the Pit and the Toy Chica intermissions is almost definitely Charlotte being grouped together with the rest of the kids. I think that's where it ends. The novels, the newspaper clippings, heck, even Fazbear Frights all tell us 5 kids went missing. There are 5 animatronics and each kid goes into one of them. I think that adding a 6th kid to take the role of an already existing 5th kid makes no sense. And this is where my major issue with the Vengeful Andrew theory lies. He's not necessary. Cassidy does everything he does without needing to be replaced. I don't understand why some people want Andrew to be in the game so much. In my opinion, he adds nothing of value that Cassidy doesn't. In fact, I think he's meant to be a parallel to Cassidy. The nightmare theory with the man in room 1280 in the hospital is unironically great, but notice how in that line Nightmarion says it's a nightmare Afton will never wake from, implying it's not a real dream, rather something much more unnatural. Plus, the symbolism of Henry saying the darkest pit of hell is coming to swallow William whole at the end of Pizza Sim is just too good to miss out on, and is obviously pointing at the events of UCN. A reminder that Ultimate Custom Night was originally meant to be a DLC to FNAF 6, unlockable by beating the true ending. As for the gender thing, I think Cassidy could totally be a boy. People assume they're a girl because of the Silver Eyes trilogy and Cassidy appearing as a girl there, but it's important to remember that Cassidy was the one to possess Bonnie instead of Jeremy in the novels, with Golden Freddy being possessed by a boy, Michael Brooks. In the FNAF movie, the Golden Freddy victim is a boy. This last bit may not be super strong evidence, but William also seems to have stuffed the kids into the animatronics by gender, and Fredbear's male, so there's also that. Remember that Golden Freddy is almost definitely the one orchestrating Ultimate Custom Night. Now that I'm done with my problems with Andrew being the one he should not have killed, I want to talk about something far more important, the evidence for Cassidy being the vengeful spirit instead. A game that's surprisingly pretty vocal about its lore and tells us a lot about the dynamic the 5 missing kids have with Afton is Five Nights at Freddy's 3, which presents us with a ton of information regarding the 5th victim in particular. Throughout the game, we're working through different minigames helping crying kids, which eventually leads us to setting the spirits of the missing children free. These minigames hide tons of secrets, but there's one secret in particular that never gets brought up and that I was surprised was even real. 2 well-known secrets in the Happiest Day minigames are a pair of shadowy rooms containing dark, pixelated versions of Balloon Boy and Puppet crying. However, there's another one of these rooms that's infinitely more important that no one ever brings up. In the Chica's Party minigame, if you no-clip for a specific wall, you can find a room filled with 5 dark, crying cupcakes. Only one of them can move and relentlessly chases you down, but no matter how hard it tries, it can't hurt you. If you see what I'm alluding at and are a bit skeptical, don't worry, I'll explain. There are also 4 hidden cupcakes hidden throughout FNAF 3 necessary to access Chica's Party, further suggesting that these 4 represent the missing children, with the one chasing us being Cassidy. After all, only Cassidy pursues Afton everywhere he goes, trying their best to make his life a living hell. But no matter what, Afton perseveres, whether it be by coming back as Springtrap or as Burntrap if you believe that the last one is truly Afton. Furthermore, apart from the FNAF movie evidence I brought up earlier, Andrew is only slightly connected to Golden Freddy, with a curly black-haired kid being found inside the animatronic in the Fazbear Fright story, The New Kid. It's a very weird and weak connection, with Fetch probably being the only animatronic Andrew ever possessed. The whole New Kid story is super weird and doesn't fit in with the Stingers anyway, so this evidence isn't great. Cassidy being the one in Golden Freddy, however, is made pretty obvious by the survival logbook, FNAF 3, and the FNAF 6 Lore Keeper ending, which perfectly lines up with the Golden Freddy imagery from UCN, which, like I already said, came out right after FNAF 6, meaning Scott Cawthon had at least a rough idea of what he wanted to do with the character of Golden Freddy. Setting this particular animatronic apart from the original 4 and making him special, adding more to the mystery of his character in the original FNAF games, is perfect, and trying to introduce someone else to take Cassidy's role is just plain weird. An extra little detail that I find interesting is that in the mobile port of UCN, the button to leave or close the game is a Golden Freddy next to an arrow, further implying he's in charge of the hell William is in. Also in UCN is the Old Man Consequences cutscene that features the player as a bear being told by the old man to move on and to leave the demon, or William Afton, to his demons. The only way to exit the minigame is to submerge yourself in the red lake you find there, with this ending giving you an achievement that is shared in FNAF World, as Old Man Consequences also appears in that game. Note that you're playing as a bear, not anything else. Yet again, the Freddy parallels are everywhere. Now, there's some people that say that Andrew isn't technically a separate character from Cassidy. That's just the Vengeful Spirit's name in the game's universe, or the real 5th kid from the MCI. This argument is pointless, since the name of the character doesn't really matter all that much. If Andrew is in the games, that's probably just the name of the Golden Freddy kid instead of Cassidy. As well as that, a theory I've seen pop up recently on the identity of the Vengeful Spirit is that it's actually Michael, not Cassidy or Andrew, with the theory gaining renewed popularity thanks to Duo Process Theory and their FNAF timeline video. Unfortunately, this theory makes no sense. First off, the moniker, the one you should not have killed, does not apply to Mike. William never killed him, and anyway, Michael wanted to die after sister location, as hinted at by the custom night dialogue.
I should be dead, but I'm not.
Also, Mike isn't a child after FNAF 6, he's like 50, and the spirit is called a child in official material. Also, Mike has no reason to hunt William down even after death. Yet again, the sister location custom night dialogue suggests all he wants to do is kill him, not torment him forever. And to top it all off, Mike has zero connection to Golden Freddy at all, except maybe Fredbear and the Bite of 83. Now, there's one last quick theory that falls under Vengeful Andrew that I want to bring up before we finish off. The idea that both Cassidy and Andrew are the Vengeful Spirit, or spirits, and they're both torturing William in UCN. I'm not a huge fan of the UCN duo theory since I see the one you should not have killed as one person with unique goals and motivations, not two kids in a trench coat acting as one. However, if you have any thoughts or corrections you'd like to make on my analysis of Andrew's character, his canonicity to the games, or anything else, make sure to leave a comment and tell me your opinion. In conclusion, I believe Andrew isn't a good pick for the role of the Vengeful Spirit because of several reasons. First, he's unnecessary and fulfills an identical role to that already taken by a pre-existing game's timeline character. Second, he doesn't have a strong enough connection to Golden Freddy to tie in well to the imagery of that animatronic found in Ultimate Custom Night. And third, I feel like it goes against Scott's admittedly very flawed narrative philosophy to change a previous character he already established for someone for the books. Although, like I said earlier, I could be wrong and you're allowed to express your opinions. None of this is decisive and it's all just a theory. And that's about it for this video. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this theory, and even if you didn't, please leave a like and subscribe as we're almost at 1k and I need money for very important things. Definitely not plushies that are totally responsible to spend money on. And consider checking out my membership while you're at it. I intend to start posting to the second channel soon. I've got some fun uploads in mind, but it might take a while to get those videos ready. In the meantime, check out some of my previous theories, my livestream, my podcast, and my channel in general. With that, theorists, remember, keep on theorizing and never stop overthinking.